Hello students. In physical pharmaceutics second, we were discussing about the colloidal dispersions. So in colloidal dispersions unit, today we have to discuss about the preparation and purification of colloids and stability of colloids. Myself, Dr. Himmat Singh, Associate Professor, School of Pharmacy, Suresh Gyan Vihar University, Jaipur. So in our today's lecture, we have to study about the methods for preparation and purification of different colloids. Then we have to discuss about the stability of and effect of electrolytes on stability of colloids. And after it, we have to learn about the co-acervation and peptidation. And lastly, we discuss about the protective action of colloid. So these are the different learning objectives of today's lecture. And after the completion of this lecture, the student will be able to know about the preparation and purification methods for different colloids and stability of colloids with respect to effect of electrolytes, co-acervation, peptidation, and lastly, we have to discuss about the protective action. So student will be able to know all these parameters after completion of today's discussion. Now, first of all, preparation of colloids. So there are two main types of methods for the preparation of colloidal dispersions. One is the dispersion method, and second one is the condensation method. So there are two main methods by which we can prepare the different type of colloidal salts or colloidal dispersion systems. So dispersion method, in the dispersion or disintegration method, as the name suggests, particles of colloidal size are produced by disintegration of a bulk quantity of a hydrophobic material. So this is a very common method as we discussed at the time of lyophilic colloids. So generally we can prepare this type of colloidal dispersion with the help of dispersion method. And as per the name given, the different particles of colloid size are produced by the disintegration of a bulk quantity of a hydrophobic material. So this is the first method, which is known as dispersion method. And this method involve the use of such mechanical methods like mechanical dispersion, electro dispersion, ultrasonic dispersion, and peptidation. So the first method for preparation of colloidal dispersion is dispersion method, and it can be divided into four parts. One is the mechanical dispersion, second one is the electro dispersion, third one is the ultrasonic dispersion, and last one is the peptidation. Now let us discuss one by one. So first one is the mechanical dispersion method. So the substance to be dispersed is finally as far as possible by the usual methods. So first it should be dispersed is ground as finally as possible by the usual method. It is shaken with the dispersion medium and thus obtained in the form of a coarse dispersion. This suspension is now passed through a colloid mill. The simplest type of colloid mill type disc mill consists of two metal discs nearly touching each other and rotating in opposite direction at a very high speed. So by the help of colloid mill, this mechanical dispersion method can be used. Suspension passing through each rotating disc is exposed to a powerful shearing force, and the suspended particles are apart to yield particles of colloidal size. So after passing the suspension through each rotating disc in colloid mill, It is exposed to a powerful shearing force, and the suspended particles can yield different particles of colloidal size range. Colloid mill are widely used in the industries for the industrial preparation of paints, cement, food products, pharmaceutical products, etc. So this is the first method, mechanical dispersion method. You can see the diagram for mechanical dispersion where the suspension can be poured from upper side. There is the driving belt is given, and after it discharge point is given. Still disc rotating in the opposite direction. So this is the principle of mechanical dispersion method. Now, after the mechanical dispersion, the next is the electro dispersion method. So these methods are employed for obtaining colloidal solutions of metals like gold, silver, platinum, etc. An electric arc is struck between the two metallic electrodes placed in a container of water. The intense heat of the arc converts the metal into the vapors, which are condensed immediately in the cold water bath. This results in the formation of particles of colloidal size. We call it as gold soap. So generally the metal ions, metal like gold, silver, platinum, they are used for this method, and they can be converted into the colloidal solutions of metal by the use of electric arc or by the use of electrode dispersion method. So basically in this method, the intense heat of the arc converts the metal into the vapors, and then it should be condensed immediately in the cold water bath. Lastly, the formation of particles will be in the colloidal size range. You can see the gratings arc method where the electrodes can be seen in this diagram. Dispersion medium is seen, and then there is a surrounding ice bath is given. So by the help of gratings arc method, we can prepare the colloidal dispersion of different metal ions. Now, after the electric and mechanical dispersion method, next one is the ultrasonic dispersion method. Ultrasonic dispersion method is for the name given. Ultrasonic vibrations can be used. So ultrasonic vibrations having frequency more than the frequency of audible sound. Could bring about the transformation of force suspension to colloidal dimensions. Claus obtained mercury sold by subjecting mercury to sufficiently high frequency ultrasonic vibration. So with the help of ultrasonic dispersion method, we can use the ultrasonic vibration, and then we convert the force dispersion or force suspension to a colloidal dispersion. This is the diagram of ultrasonic dispersion of mercury in water. So you can see here there are two phases, water and oil. The mercury is given here. An electrical oscillator is given here, and quartz generator is also shown in the diagram. So by the help of ultrasonic vibration, the force suspension can be converted into the colloidal size range or colloidal dispersion. Now, next one is the peptidization. So, peptidization is the process of converting a freshly prepared precipitate into colloidal form by the addition of a suitable electrolyte. So, it is nothing but it is the process of converting a freshly prepared precipitate into colloidal form by the addition of a suitable electrolyte. And the electrolyte which is used in this process is called as peptidizing agent. For example, when ferric chloride is added to precipitate of ferric hydroxide gets converted into reddish brown colored colloidal solution. So this is the one of the example of peptidization method. Why it occurs? This is due to preferential adsorption of cations of the electrolyte by the precipitate. When FeCl3 is added to FeOS3, Fe3 plus ion from FeCl3 are adsorbed by FeOS3, iron hydroxide particles, and thus the iron hydroxide particles acquire positive charge and they start repelling each other, forming a colloidal solution. So this is the peptidization method by which we can prepare a colloidal solution like the iron. Now next one is the condensation method. So in this method, the colloidal particles are formed by the aggregation of smaller particles such as molecules. These involve a high degree of initial supersaturation followed by the formation and growth of nuclei. And what is supersaturation? So because the high degree of initial supersaturation is required, it is followed by the formation and growth of nuclei. So when the concentration of solute is present in more amount than the equilibrium, then it will be the supersaturated system. So supersaturation can be brought about by the change in the solvent. For example, if sulfur is dissolved in the alcohol and the concentrated solution is then poured into an excess of water, many small nuclei form in the supersaturated solution. These grow rapidly to form a colloidal salt. If a saturated solution of sulfur in acetone is poured slowly into hot water, the acetone vaporizes and it can produce or leaving a colloidal dispersion of sulfur. So it is the one of the method, condensation method. In changing the solvent, by changing in the solvent, we can obtain the supersaturation, and supersaturation followed by the formation and growth of nuclei. Second method, which can be categorized under the condensation method, this is the chemical reaction method. So, for example, colloidal silver iodide may be obtained by reacting together dilute solution of silver nitrate and potassium iodide. So, due to the chemical reaction, colloidal dispersion can be obtained. So, colloidal silver iodide may be obtained by reacting together dilute solution of silver nitrate and potassium iodide. If a solution of ferric chloride is boiled with an excess of water, producing red sol of hydrated iron oxide by hydrolysis. Sulfur salt is obtained by bubbling H2S gas, hydrogen sulfide gas through the solution of an oxidizing agent like HNO3 or bromine water, etc. FeOS3 salt or arsenic sulfide salt can also be prepared by chemical method. So in condensation method, due to the use of chemical reactions, or by the use of different chemical reactions, we can obtain the colloidal dispersions of different substances like sulfur salt, like iron salt, like arsenic sulfide salt. So these are the dispersions which can be prepared by chemical methods. So when we summarize the preparation of colloids, so dispersion method, size reduction method, then ultrasonic generator by the use of electric arc, by the use of colloid mill. Condensation method, addition of solvent or changing in the solvent and chemical reactions are the part of condensation method. The ultrasonic generator, dispersion achieved by the high intensity ultrasonic generator at frequency more than the 20,000 cycles per second, and stabilizers are used as surfactants. So dispersion achieved by the high intensity ultrasonic waves. In peptidization, as we discussed, aggregates to colloidal size particles. It can be obtained by removal of electrolytes or by the addition of surface active agents or surfactants. Some of the peptidizing agents are given here, like glycerin, sugar, lactose, etc. So, by addition of surfactant or by removal of electrolytes, the colloidal salt can be formulated by the use of peptidization method. Again, we have to see this colloid mill, where the colloid mill pours to colloidal material sheared between two rapidly rotating disc plates. As we earlier discussed, there are two rotating rapidly rotating closed plates, and low efficiency and reduce the size of small proportion of particles with stabilizers added to control the size, like the colloidal kaolin, zinc oxide, are prepared by the colloidal mill. So this is also a mechanical dispersion method to formulate the colloidal dispersion. As we already discussed, electric arc, it involves the production of electric arc within the liquid and dispersion achieved by intense heat generated by the arc. So some metal of the electrodes dispersed as vapor, then condensed to colloidal particles. And potassium hydroxide can be used as stabilizers. So this is the diagram of electric arc which is given in this PPT. So these are the different methods by which we can prepare the colloidal dispersions. When we summarize the second type of method, condensation method, you can see the materials of subcolloidal dimensions are caused to aggregate into particles with colloidal size range by the use of change in solvent or chemical reaction. As we discussed, first method is change in solvent. So change in solvent, first we require the supersaturation, and supersaturation promote the formation and growth of nuclei. So colloidal system formation can be done after the supersaturation achieved. Example of this type of mechanism done in sulfur and alcohol in excess of water. In second type of condensation method, we discussed by the help of chemical reactions, we can obtain the different type of colloidal dispersions, like the hydrogen sulfide. First, it is oxidation. Its oxidation done, then sulfur atoms can convert into sulfur soap. So bromine plus H2S can provide the sulfide and HBr. Then HNO3 and H2S also reacts, and they can also form the H2O plus NO2 plus sulfide. So ferric chloride plus water, they go the hydrolysis and they can form the ferric oxide salt, which is red in color. So hydrogen sulfide plus arsenious acid, they can do the double decomposition reaction and form the arsenious sulfide salt. So by the help of different chemical reactions, we can obtain the different colloidal dispersions. So there are two methods as we discussed. First one is the dispersion method, and second one is the condensation method for preparation of different colloidal dispersions. Now, after preparation of colloidal dispersions, the second part of this lecture is purification of colloidal dispersions. So once the preparation is done, although it is done in different methods for different colloidal types. So if the colloid is lyophilic, the preparation method will be different. If the colloid is lyophobic type, the preparation method will be different. So if we have discussed about the common method for preparation of all the type of colloidal dispersion with suitable examples. Now proceed for purification of colloidal dispersions. So after the preparation of colloids, either it may be due to the mechanical dispersion method or by the help of condensation method, we can obtain a colloidal salt or colloidal dispersion. So when a colloidal solution is prepared, it contains certain impurities. These impurities are mainly electrolytic in nature and they tend to destabilize the colloidal solutions. So, therefore, colloidal solutions are purified by the following methods. So, there are two methods. One is the dialysis, the second one is the electrodialysis. So, there are two methods mainly used for purification of colloidal dispersions. One is the dialysis method. So dialysis method, the process of dialysis is based on the fact that the colloidal particles cannot pass through parchment or cellophane membrane while the ions of the electrolyte can do the same. So the colloidal solution or colloidal dispersion is taken in a bag of cellophane which is suspended in a tub full of fresh water. The impurities diffuse out, leaving pure colloidal solution in the bag. This process of separating the particles of colloidal form impurities by means of diffusion through a suitable membrane is called as dialysis. So, dialysis is the process of separating the particles of colloid from its impurities by means of diffusion through a suitable membrane, and this membrane is known as dialysis membrane. You can see the diagram here where sketch showing the removal of electrolytes from the colloidal material by diffusion through a semi-permeable membrane. Semi-permeable membrane means it allows some of the selected substances, not allowed all the substances. Conditions on the two sides A and B of the membrane are shown at the start and at equilibrium. So at the start, the open circles are the colloidal particles that are too large to pass through the membrane. The solid dots are the electrolyte particles that pass through the pores of the membrane. So at the start, before purification, the diagram is given on the left side, and at equilibrium condition, the diagram is showing on the right side at equilibrium what happens. So by the help of dialysis process, we can separate out the colloidal dispersions or colloidal particles. Second method, which is known as electrodialysis method. So the dialysis process is slow, and to speed up its rate, it is carried out in the presence of an electric field. So when an electric field is used, the dialysis process can be known as electrodialysis. Both of the methods are used for purification of colloidal dispersions. So when the electric field is applied to the electrodes, the ions of the electrolyte present as impurity diffuse towards oppositely charged electrodes at a faster rate. So due to the use of electric field which is applied through the electrodes, the ions of the electrolyte present as impurity diffuse towards the oppositely charged electrode at a faster rate. And the dialysis carried out in the presence of electric field is known as electrodialysis. So it is the similar process of dialysis, but it is carried out under the electric field. So it is known as electrodialysis. So after the electrodialysis, there are purifications of the colloidal particles is complete. Now after the purification, now next is the pharmaceutical applications of colloidal dispersions. So as we know, colloidal particles or colloidal dispersions having the size range in the 1 nanometer to zero point 0.5 micrometer, and due to its large specific surface or large surface area, they show many important pharmaceutical properties which can be helpful in formulation of different dosage forms. So pharmaceutical applications of colloids. Some of the applications of colloidal dispersions are given here. Now, first one is the therapeutic application or in therapy. Some colloidal dispersions show better therapeutic action and are used in the treatment, like the silver germicidal. Colloidal silver has been approved as a disinfectant for hospitals and medical centers. So disinfectants and antiseptics, both of the chemical agents are very important for sanitization purpose. We can use the disinfectant for non-living objects. So silver germicidal, colloidal silver can be used or can be approved as a disinfectant for hospitals and medical centers. Similarly, copper dispersion can be used as anti-cancer treatment of anti-cancer therapy. For the site-specific delivery of anti-cancer drug, which can reduce the side effects of the anti-cancer drugs. Colloidal copper is a great adjunct to health and beauty, a stimulant for the brain and artery and the blood cleanser, and an antioxidant as well as the collagen booster. So these are the different applications of colloidal copper and colloidal silver. Similarly, mercury, it can be used in anti-syphilis. So after the therapy or after the therapeutic application, the next one is the absorption. Because of the its huge specific surface or large specific area can easily absorb. Colloidal sulfur shows better and faster absorption compared to a forced dispersion of sulfur. So when we compare the colloidal sulfur with the forced dispersion of sulfur, and as I told you, due to its more larger specific surface, it shows better and faster absorption rate compared to other dispersions. Next one is the solubility. So solubility of drugs is improved by using colloidal systems containing surface active agent. So as we discussed, surface active agents are the substances which reduce the surface tension or interfacial tension between the systems. So solubility of drug is improved by using colloidal systems containing surface active agents, like the solubilization of sulfonamides and phenobarbitals. So solubilization of these drugs can be helpful to increase the bioavailability of these drugs. Next application is given as stability. So dispersions of surface active agents like association colloids are used to improve the stability of drugs in liquid forms. Colloidal dispersions of molecules like gelatin and synthetic polymers, methyl cellulose, HPMC, are applied as a coating solutions on tablets and granules. So these are the different pharmaceutical applications of colloids. Now, next one is the targeting of drug to specific organs. So as we know, targeting means we have to apply the solution or apply the dispersion or apply our drug to particular site of action. So it increase the therapeutic effect and minimize the adverse side effects. So now novel drug delivery or targeted drug delivery is widely used, and it can be used for targeting of drugs to specific organs. Now, how colloidal dispersions can be helpful, let us see here. So, colloidal dispersions or colloids are used in targeting the drugs to specific body organs like carrier systems such as liposomes, neosomes, and nanoparticles. Whereas the liposomes are phospholipid vesicles, neosomes are non-ionic surfactant vesicles, and nanoparticles can be used for targeting of the drugs to specific body organs. Next one is the colloidal systems that are official and meant for parenteral use. First one is the iron dextran injection, BP. It contains the dextran complexes with ferric ions, which can be used intramuscular route in the treatment of anemia. Second one is the iron sorbitol injection, BP. It contains the sorbitol. dextran and citric acid complexes with ferric ions. So these are the different preparations which can be used for parenteral application. Now after the different applications, we can see the colloidal system in our daily life. So these are the different pictures shown in this PPT. You can see these are the different examples of colloidal dispersions in our daily life, like in terms of milk, blood, paints, soap, detergents, cosmetics, foams, aerogels, etc. So colloids having so many importance, colloidal dispersions are widely used in our daily life, not only for pharmaceutical purpose but for therapeutic purpose and other applications also. Now, after the completion of application part of colloidal dispersion, now the next section is the very important, which is related with the stability of colloids. Stability can be defined in terms of physical as well as the chemical stability. So system, whether it may be present in any type of dosage form or dispersion system, first we have to check the stability of that system. So stability of colloidal dispersions depends on so many mechanisms, and it involves the sedimentation, the flocculation, the coagulation, and phase separation. Similarly, flocculation, coagulation, sedimentation, and then it will convert into phase separation. So, stable system can separate out by the different mechanisms of flocculation, sedimentation, and coagulation. So, now let us discuss about the stability of colloidal dispersion in details. So regarding the stability of colloidal dispersion, stabilizations serves to prevent the colloids from aggregation. So first, the aim of our colloidal dispersion is stable, and for providing the stabilization, we have to prevent the aggregation of colloidal dispersions or colloidal particles. So stabilization serves to prevent colloids from aggregation. The presence and magnitude or absence of a charge on a colloidal particle is an important factor in the stability of colloids. So we have to consider the magnitude or presence or absence of a charge on the colloidal particle, because it is the very important factor when we determine or consider the stability of colloidal dispersions. Now, there are two main mechanisms for colloidal stabilization. One is the steric stabilization, another one is the electrostatic stabilization. In steric stabilization, surrounding each particle with a protective solvent sheet which prevents adherence due to Brownian movement. And second mechanism of colloid stabilization, which is provided by electrostatic stabilization. So in this, providing the particles with electric charge. So there are two main mechanisms for colloid stabilization. Either it may be through steric stabilization by preparation of by surrounding each particle with a protective solvent sheet which prevent the aggregation or adherence due to Brownian or zigzag movement. Second one is the providing the particles with electric charge. So there are two mechanisms for colloid stabilization. Now, in lyophobic salts, they are unstable generally because in the presence of electrolytes. So the particles stabilized only by the presence of electrical charges on their surfaces through the addition of small amount of electrolytes. The like charges produce repulsion, which prevents the coagulation of the particles with subsequent settling. So addition of electrolytes beyond necessary for maximum stability results in the accumulation of opposite ions and decrease zeta potential, coagulation, and ultimately precipitation of colloids. So, by the use of small amount of electrolytes in the presence of electric charges, we can stabilize the lyophobic source. And zeta potential is very important and related with the stability of this type of colloidal dispersion because zeta potential governs the degree of repulsion. Colloidal stability requires a repulsion force. So in this PPT, you can see here, lyophobic colloid is stabilized by lyophilic colloids. So electrostatically stabilized colloids is given on left side, where the statically stabilized colloidal system is given on right side. All particles naturally attract each other, and electrical charges or attached polymer layers screen the attraction. So in sterically stabilized system where the surrounded particle produce a sheet and they can prevent the aggregation of colloidal particles. In electrostatically stabilizing mechanism, we can use the electric charges. So colloidal stability requires a repulsion force, and zeta potential play a very important role in this type of dispersion systems. Now coagulations results from the mixing of oppositely charged colloids. It is the one of the factor which affects the stability of colloids. Then, when we consider the lyophilic salts and association colloids, comparatively they are stable in nature and present as pure solutions. When we add the moderate amounts of electrolyte, it will not cause coagulation opposite to the lyophobic. And when we add the electrolyte to the lyophobic solution, they can salting out effect, but it is not seen in case of lyophilic salts and association colloids, which are the more stable than the lyophobic colloidal dispersion. So, agglomeration and precipitation of lyophilic colloids, which is defined as salting out effect. This is obtained by addition of large amount of electrolytes and addition of less polar solvent. So first one is the addition of large amount of electrolytes. So anions arranged in a decreasing order of precipitating power like citrate having more than tartrate, sulfate, acetate, chloride, nitrate, bromide, and iodide. The precipitation power is directly related to the hydration of the ion and its ability to separate water molecules from colloidal particles. Second one is the addition of less polar solvent, like by the use of alcohol and acetone. The addition of these type of less polar solvent renders the solvent mixture unfavorable for the colloids and they can decrease the solubility and promote the salting out effect. Now, next one is the very important term co-acervation. So first we have to see the definition of this co-acervation. So what is co-acervation and what is the co-acervate? It is again related with the stability of colloidal dispersion system. So the process of mixing negatively and positively charged hydrophilic colloids as the particles separate from the dispersion to form a layer rich in the colloidal aggregates. These type of colloidal aggregates are known as co-acervate and the mechanism is known as co-acervation. So it is the process of mixing negatively and positively charged hydrophilic colloids and the particles separate from the dispersion to form a layer rich in the colloidal aggregates. It is an example of stability of colloids. So when we consider an example of co-acervation, consider the mixing of gelatin and acacia. Now let us see what happens in this co-acervation process. So gelatin at pH below 4.7 is positively charged and acacia is negatively charged. And when we mix it, both of them in certain proportion, then they can produce the co-acervate and co-acervation results. So this is an example of co-acervation when we mix the gelatin and acacia. Now sensitization and protective colloidal action. So sensitization is the addition of small amount of hydrophilic or hydrophobic colloid to a hydrophobic colloid of oppositely charged tend to sensitize or coagulate the particles. So sensitization is again related with the stability of our colloidal dispersion. So when we add the small amount of hydrophilic or hydrophobic colloid to a hydrophobic colloid of oppositely charged, there may be risk of sensitization or coagulation of the particles. And why it is occurs? So again, this is due to decrease in the zeta potential below the critical value. Zeta potential or electrokinetic potential when it decreases to the 20 to 50 millivolts, and it shows the sensitization reactions. So this is due to the decrease in the zeta potential below the critical value, which is 20 to 50 millivolts. Sensitization or coagulation process can occur. Polymers, flocculants can breach individual colloidal particles by attractive electrostatic interactions. Like negatively charged colloidal silica particles can be flocculated by the addition of positively charged polymer. So polymer flocculants can reach individual colloidal particles by attractive electrostatic interaction, and it is given by the example of colloidal silica particles, which is flocculated by the addition of positively charged polymer. Now, how can we protect these instabilities or instability or coagulation reactions? So protection, what is the meaning? It the addition of large amount of hydrophilic colloid to a hydrophobic colloid tend to stabilize our system. This is known as protective action, and the added colloid is known as protective colloid. So protection is provided by added hydrophilic colloid, which is known as protective colloid, and they can tend to stabilize the colloidal dispersion system. Why it happens? So this may be due to the hydrophile is absorbed as a monomolecular layer on the hydrophobic particles. And this phenomena is known as protection, and the added hydrophile hydrophilic substance is known as protective colloids. So you can see the diagram here where the hydrophile is absorbed as a monomolecular layer on the hydrophobic particles. It provides the protection, and so it is known as protective colloids. So protective colloid is a lyophilic colloid that when present in small quantities keeps lyophobic colloids from precipitating under the coagulating action of electrolytes. So this is the simple definition of protective colloid, which is a lyophilic colloid, and when it present in the small quantities, it keeps the lyophobic colloids from precipitations under the coagulating actions of electrolytes. Now, what is the need of protective colloids? Why it is used? When a small amount of hydrophilic colloid is added to a hydrophobic colloid, it may coagulate the later, as we did seen in previous slides. This is due to the neutralization of the charge on the hydrophobic colloidal particles. However, the addition of large amount of hydrophilic colloid increases the stability of hydrophobic colloidal system. This is due to adsorption phenomena. So when we add the small amount of hydrophilic colloid to our hydrophobic colloid, it may coagulate the later. When lyophilic soles are added to lyophobic soles, depending on their sizes, either lyophobic sole is adsorbed in the surface of lyophilic sole or lyophilic sole is adsorbed on the surface of lyophobic sole. The layer of protective colloid prevents direct collision between the hydrophobic colloidal particle and thus prevents the coagulation process. So it is the main function of protective colloid which stops the direct collision between the hydrophobic colloidal particles and coagulation process. Coagulation is one of the very important factor for instability. So by the preventing the direct collision between the hydrophobic colloidal particle, the protective colloids prevents the coagulation process. Example is given here. Lyophilic source like starch and gelatin act as protective colloids. Now, measurement of protective action. How can we measure the protective action of any substance? So it can be expressed by gold number. So for a comparative study, Zygmundi introduced a scale of protective action for different protective colloids in terms of gold number. So Zygmundi discovered or introduced a scale which is shown the protective action for the different protective colloid in terms of gold number. So the gold number is the minimum weight in milligrams dry weight of dispersed phase of a protective colloid required to prevent the coagulation of 10 ml of a standard hydro gold salt when 1 ml of a 10% sodium chloride solution is added to it. So what is gold number? Again, we have to define it. It is the minimum weight in milligrams of a protective colloid which is required to prevent the coagulation. This color change from red to violet of 10 ml of a standard hydro gold salt. So to preventing the color change from red to violet, what is the minimum weight in milligrams of protective colloid required in a 10 ml of a standard hydro gold salt when we add the 1 ml of 10% sodium chloride solution? So it was first used by Richard et al. Zygmundi. The gold number is the weight in milligrams of a protective colloid which checks the coagulation of 10 ml of a given gold salt on adding 1 ml of 10 sodium chloride. Thus, the smaller the gold number, greater will be the protective action. So, different substances having different type of gold number. We can say that the smaller the gold number, greater will be its protective action. Gold numbers of some materials are as following, like gelatin having the 0.005 to 0.01, whereas acacia having the 0.1 to 0.2, albumin having the 0.1, sodium oleate having the 1 to 5, and Tagakhan having 2. So we conclude that the smaller the gold number, greater is the protective action. So these are the different references. So in summary, in today's lecture, we discussed about the first preparation of colloidal dispersions by different methods like mechanical dispersion method, and condensation method. In second part of today's lecture, we discussed about the purification of colloidal dispersions. Either it may be used by dialysis method or electrodialysis method. After it, we discussed about the stability of colloids. We discussed about the peptidization process, protective action, then gold number, and what is the sensitization or protective action of different colloids having the different gold number. So this is all about the today's lecture. Now these are the references given. You can use the different books to understand the concept of today's lecture topic. Now after the completion of lecture, I hope you may be able to give the answers of different questions, which is included in our quiz section, like how colloidal dispersions can be prepared. Second question is the enumerate the methods for purification of colloids. Next one is the give the applications of colloidal dispersions with examples. Next one is the what do you mean by protective colloid? Next question is define gold number. Next one is the what is the gold number of acacia? So these are the some of the questions. More questions are given in this second part. What is dialysis? What do you mean by peptidation? How colloids are different from other dispersions? So if we discuss so many times, what is the differences between the colloidal dispersion to other type of heterogeneous or homogeneous dispersion systems? And who introduced a scale of protective action for different protective colloids? So these are the different questions. So after understanding the concept of today's lecture, I hope you may be able to give the answers of these questions. So, thank you.